All right, guys, this is Norvell Central coming back at you another YouTube video, and I really do appreciate all the love and support so far on my YouTube channel. I apologize about yesterday not being able to record. I had some stuff going on, but I do have a plan for today in terms of Mike Norvell talking on the ACC kickoff yesterday and talking about Ashton Daniels. It's a big get for Florida State in terms of recruiting class and being able to get some of those guys like Devin Carter and Jason Lopez and other guys like that are being able to get the football in their hands. You know, you got your Deuce Robinsons. Obviously, you know what he is. You know exactly what you got in Makai Danzy. And Usman Kroma, you think is going to be taking the next step forward. Trey Wisner, also the running back from Texas. There's a lot of guys that I think that you're going to have a good chance at, especially in this offense. You need a quarterback to lead. And obviously, you can have a Deuce Robinson, but the problem is he had 6 touchdowns last year. He needs more than 6 touchdowns. And obviously, he had over 1,000 yards. So that's a good positive development. But the thing is, Florida State struggled down the stretch. They lost 7 of their last 9. And I'm not going to blame it all on Thomas Castellanos, but a lot of factors go into the fact that Florida State has relied so much heavily on the transfer portal. You look at a team like Miami, for example. You know, they had Derek King, they had Carson Beck, they had, Cam Ward, all those quarterbacks, and they're able to still be successful with it. Darian Mensah coming up in the transfer portal class this upcoming year. And it kind of speaks to the success that Florida State versus Miami has had. Miami has had offensive line. They've had wide receivers like Malachi Tony that's coming out this year. Florida State has them too. And I don't want you to lose sight of that. I think Florida State does have a lot of talent in this offense to really be successful. But here's Mike Norvell talking again on ACC kickoff, saying that Ashton Daniels is a guy that can do it all. He's a guy that's had a lot of experience. He's asked everything what they needed him to do. And he's just basically been able to win the job. As soon as the spring practices ended, he was able to be named the starter. And I know a lot of fans were out there saying, well, what about Kevin Sperry? What about Malachi Marshall? And those guys are really important too. But now you're basically saying, okay, guys, you're going to have the 27 gig, and let's see if you can get some of those guys in there next year. And maybe they won't transfer out. Maybe you'll have a quarterback room that's going to be filled with them, plus Jaden O'Neal, maybe another transfer if they decide to bring him in. But it just seems like Florida State is continuously going after the transfer portal well, and I don't blame them. I mean, Mike Norvell is at a point now where he has to win. And if you don't think Kevin Sperry's the long-term deal in terms of getting you what you need right now in this moment, if he's inconsistent or having any issues, Malachi Marshall I know is coming into the summer, and it's a lot to ask for a guy that's not super big in terms of stature right now and needs probably a strength and conditioning program. But you got a guy in Ashton Daniels who, yes, he come into the stretch against Arkansas and played decently well. I mean, he had some moments there. That Kentucky game, though, scares you. I mean, you played at home against Kentucky. You went 13 for 28, 108 yards. Your first time in a starting quarterback role, you had 5 sacks that were allowed in that game. And you being a rushing quarterback like you are, 15 carries for 48 yards is decent, but those 5 sacks have got to stop, and you got to find a way to get through it. The biggest thing, though, is those 2 game sample at the end of the year against Vandy and Alabama. The biggest thing, too, is against Vandy, you had 353 passing yards. You had 2 touchdowns through the air, and then you had 89 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. That is a solid stat line, especially on the road, where you force them to overtime against a really good Vanderbilt team. And then you go over to the Alabama game where your receivers at home had a lot of drops, had 7 drops to be exact, 18 completions, 39 pass attempts, and then also 1 touchdown, 1 interception. You had those 108 rushing yards, and I think that is a big factor because you have to be able to run the ball. And you look at Ashton Daniels in terms of being about 225 in his weight right now. Thomas Castellanos wasn't really that big. He's not a big guy, but Ashton Daniels is about 6'2", 225 pounds, and he's able to kind of make that contact that you really need in this offense. And I think it's going to be really important, especially on third down when your team really needs that. I would say one of the biggest plays in terms of this year, even though Florida State didn't have many, was that third down reception from Squirrel White, 41 yards, and it was probably the only catch that he really had all year with meaning at all. And Thomas Castellanos put it in a perfect spot, and they were able to get a first down and actually score the first touchdown against Alabama, and the rest was history in that game. So I think it all depends on your offense being able to help your defense, and I think you have the weapons there. Obviously, I think you're a little bit more thinner at offensive line. I think you have to work some things out, but you have a lot of veterans in that room. Like Xavier Chaplin, for example, started 35 games. Nate Paps, another guy that started 38 games. Um, Even Andre Otto, who they're very excited at the guard position. Braden Joyner, for example, has started at both Auburn and Purdue. There's a lot of pieces on that offensive line that can be successful. The problem is that you ran into last year too was you got to make sure they're all healthy, and then you also got to make sure they have the continuity within each other because that's very important on the offensive line, specifically when you have a new offense yet again. So I think you're going to have to rely on some younger pieces, like I said before, Jason Lopez, Devin Carter, even a Tayshawn Gelsey, I think could be another piece there. I just think that this is the right move in terms of Mike Norvell making the move to win now. But I just wonder how much of a factor is it going to be and how much of a risk is it going to be just to have a guy that's out there having a 2 game sample size when your career has gone from 24 touchdowns and 22 interceptions in your career at Stanford and Auburn combined. I just think that's a big factor of what Florida State's got to do this season. They're taking a huge risk again on the transfer portal. And really, when you're looking at Mike Norvell's tenure at Florida State, the only success that he's had so far at the quarterback position has been Jordan Travis. And Jordan Travis has been gone for 2 years now at this point, almost three, including this season. And, when he went down in 2023, I'm not even saying necessarily that offense was dynamic by any means, but they had Jordan Travis at quarterback. They had other weapons like a Johnny Wilson and also a Keon Coleman. I think there was a lot of pieces that Florida State can kind of lean to, but who are you going to lean to this year? You got Deuce, but what are you going to do for the other guys? And they've got to be able to help Ashton Daniels out. You can't be able to force him over the middle and being able to do stuff and cater to things Mike Norvell wants to do. You have to be able to cater to his system. And I think obviously a couple of times there, I think when Thomas Castellanos could be able to run, they were trying to make him throw. And really that comes down to a factor of Thomas Castellanos also making the adjustment himself too and being able to find a way to be able to run the football at an effective level. He did everything he could to beat Stanford there at the end before he got hurt, and I know he put his heart on the line there to try to win the game, and then Kevin Sperry had to finish out, and it was an embarrassing loss. But I do think that there were positives in that game that you can kind of circle to in terms of quarterbacks being able to fight for this team, but you have to have more. And this team knows that. This team knows that we've been very disappointed. And obviously, this video isn't about downgrading the staff or downgrading the team because I want Florida State to be successful. But the only way they are going to be successful is Ashton Daniels being able to perform at least a decent level to be able to give his offense a chance to be able to be successful. Obviously, you're going to have other key components like the offensive line's got to be able to block too, because you can't have a game like he had against Kentucky where he had 5 sacks being allowed. You have to be able to give him time in the pocket to be able to survey the field and then being able to pass it in a quick passing manner, or you're able to being able to scramble out of the pocket and get a first down. But let me know your thoughts on Ashton Daniels. Are you in with the hype? Do you think Mike Norvell is kind of talking out of his head right now at this point? I definitely think that a lot of fans are kind of going to that latter comment there with thinking he's just a talking head right now in the offseason. But I do think you made a lot of realistic points in saying Ashton Daniels can do a lot of things for this program. But let me know what you think down below. And as always, I really appreciate everything that y'all do for my social media accounts and everything like that. It's been a blessing to be able to kind of get back into the YouTube side of things, and hopefully we can be able to continue to push out as much creative content for Florida State fans to enjoy this season. And let's go have a great season with Ashton Daniels at quarterback. And as always, go Noles.